Hey, my beautiful mythical creatures. This one's going to be a hard one for me to read, but we're continuing on with Kaijin, written by Namadi. I'm sorry if I'm butchering names. I'm just going to read the title, the summary, and the trigger warnings, and I'm sorry if I get a bit choked up. Chapter 3, QRKLS 0715XX MI11. Summary. The task force assembles, and the universe continues to give Izuku a bad time. Trigger warnings. Reference to child abuse, blood, imprisonment, descriptions of injury, non-consensual body modification, sexual suggestions, sexual suggestive phrasing, minor. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Namasa burst through the conference room door with an evidence box in his hands. His partner, Sansa, followed with two more, stacking them on the corner of the table. "What's this about, Detective?" Sir Night-Eye asked. Namasa was grateful for the man's urgency. The hero team had been digging for information in the field for over a year, but they had hit a roadblock, considering the victims were quirkless. In fact, it took 6 months and four petitions for Namasa and Sansa to convince the Hero Commission to put together a task force. They always considered a lack of information and more pressing issues. Even when the culprit was narrowed down to the Hisakaizai. I am sorry if I'm butchering that. One of the most persistent thorns in the Hero Commission's side. It wasn't until the unofficial voice of the people, President Mike, had made noise about it on his radio show that they agreed to allow Namasa and Sansa to assemble a hero team. Eraserhead watched Namasa closely. They had known each other for a long time. The two had met back at the dawn of their careers. Shota was interning for his 3rd year at UA, and Namasa was a rookie fresh out of the academy. Late nights and very early coffee runs had brought them closer than they let anyone know. Namasa was tense. His normal rampant appearance even more disheveled, and this ever-present exhaustion looking more like death warmed over. Shota found himself bracing to jump up and catch the man if he suddenly passed out. Their eyes met briefly, and Shota saw desperation there that triggered his fight or flight. With a bone-weary sigh, Namasa addressed the assembled heroes. "We have new information," he announced. "That's great! Maybe we can finally move forward." Namasa went stiff, and Shota suppressed a flinch. Fat Gum was a young hero, only going pro a couple years ago. His cheery attitude and expressive work in cases like drug addiction and body positivity had rocketed him through the ranks. This was his first experience with a task force. He hadn't learned that breaks in cases like this meant something terrible had happened. They took a 6-year-old. The room stilled. The horror of the situation sank in like stones in their chests. All the previous missings had been adults. A quirkless child was rare nowadays. Fat Gum looked a little sick. Shota almost felt bad that they had to rip that unwavering positivity out from under him. But if he wanted to make a real difference, he would have to get used to cases like this. Namasa swallowed hard, and Shota saw the minute trembling of his hand on the table. He shifted slightly and pressed the top of his boot on Nemo's loafer. "It's all right, Fat Gum," the blonde across the table said soothingly. President Mike's statement was directed at the young hero, but his tone was one Namasa and Shota knew well, a balm to the souls of the detective and the underground hero. He wouldn't be surprised if Hizashi was pressing on Nemo's other foot. "It's all right," he was saying. "You can do this." Namasa straightened up. "President Mike is right," he said. "You're new to this. You're here to learn. And unfortunately, that means learning that new information comes at a price." Namasa pressed a few buttons on the table. The lights dimmed and a school file was projected onto the wall. A green-haired child smiles brightly, but the pros around the table see that eye bags too heavy for a child, and the hint of cheekbones that should have been cushioned with baby fat. Midoriya Izuku, 6 years old, diagnosed quirkless a week ago. When he didn't come back to school, a family friend got suspicious and visited the house. The mother, Midoriya Inko, tried to play it off as a runaway, but was arrested for child abuse and human trafficking. He hit another button and a series of crime scene photos filled the wall. Front and center was a photo of an empty closet. Blood stained the floor, and the walls were shredded with jagged claw marks. Forensics dates the oldest blood was stained a little over 3 years old. Shota growled. She beat and imprisoned a 3-year-old? His mother Did his mother do that to his face? Midnight asked, referring to the impossible to miss burn scar on the greenette's cheek. No, that was a quirk accident. His friend Katsuki manifested a quirk that allows him to create explosions in his hands, and apparently Izuku was too close. The same Katsuki that is listed as being the one to find the closet? Night Eye asked, studying the police file Sansa handed out. A child saw this, Fat Gum exclaimed, still looking a bit green. Nemo's shoulders dropped slightly. I advised his mother to seek therapy for both her son and herself. She was present during Midoriya's confession. They were old friends, and she's really broken up. She didn't notice the signs in hindsight. I don't see how this helps us. Centipeder, that's what I'm going to call them, centipeder, spoke up. I'm sorry if I'm butchering names. We have dozens of missing persons. How is this child different? He's been in their possession for only 13 hours when we were called. Cameras hadn't been erased yet. When another button pushed, a video of an unassuming neighborhood appeared. An old car pulled up and 2 men got out. They looked around for a moment before leaning on the hood to smoke. That's Stretch and Wear, Night Eye provided. Low-level Yukaizai thugs. The video continued for another minute when 2 more figures appeared across the street. Even in the dim light, they could make out the green hair. The kid's body language almost looked drunk. No doubt drugged. When the pair reached the sidewalk, the green bean surprised everyone by escaping his mother's clutches and dashing for a narrow alley between 2 businesses. Shota wanted to cheer the kid on. Everyone in the room leaned forward, praying the child would make it to cover. It only made their disappointment more like bitter poison when the child collapsed and withered on the ground in pain. What did she do? What is her quirk? Facum asked as he watched the 3 adults approach the child, the mother with her hands stretched out towards her son. Nemo's shoulders lowered a bit more, the weight slowly sinking in again despite his best efforts. Attract small objects, Sanson answered for his partner. His own discomfort was made obvious by his ears lay back against his furry head. We think she pulled on his kidney. The rage Shota felt towards this woman was almost too much to contain. Hizashi's mouth was pressed in a thin line, the tension in his jaw indicating just how close he was to losing control of his quirk. The rest of the video was quick. The adults, monsters, talked briefly. Midoriya left with a bag, and the thugs drugged the child and put him in the trunk of the car before driving off. How did the child get away? He was obviously under the influence of some kind of drug. Pulling the crime scene photos back up, Namasa highlighted a photo with white mush hidden under the floorboards. The rice was laced with a date rape drug, but the kid must have suspected something. He didn't eat it. Smart kid, Hizashi muttered. That's exactly what I thought. We have a chance here. Based on the interview I did with the Bakugos and some notebooks we found in his room, Izuku is extremely smart. Opening one of the boxes, Namasa pulled out 4 notebooks and handed them around. Shota held the notebook labeled number 4. Opening it randomly, he was surprised to see a simple drawing of his goggles in yellow and black crayon. The entry was simplistic, but the amount of info the kid had about his quirk and fighting style was impressive. He asked questions about his capture weapon, theorizing that it was made of nanos and DNA technology, even if he didn't seem to fully grasp the science of it. He had Endeavor's number. Hisashi chuckled. He held up notebook number 2, where the kid had written out Endeavor's property, destruction, and fatality status. A red frowny face was drawn under them. I think the kid may just be smart enough to survive. He done extensive research on hero protocol, including kidnapping and hostage situations. He may be able to hold out. Night Eyes sighed and placed the notebook he had been reading on the table. It was open to a colorful 2-page spread of All Might's early costumes. I know you want to believe that. Sakauchi. I almost forgot how to say his name. With a child this young, it's natural to hope for the best outcome. But you have to face the fact that the child may already be dead. His Sakaizai was exclusively kidnapped adults until now. The few bodies we've found have been I just want to get this over with. It's hard. Had been brutalized. A child couldn't withstand that, no matter how smart. The change in Nemo's eyes from an empty ocean with one bright, hopeful buoy rocked in the waves to fiery determination was terrifying to behold. Normally, he took Night Eye's emotionless analyses with grace, knowing that it was how the hero kept himself compartmentalized how he was able to work and solve so many cases. This time, there was too much on the line to let emotions be swept aside. Wrenching the lid off one of the file boxes, Nemo emptied its contents across the table. Evidence bags scattered over open files and notebooks. Izuku wants to be a hero. He wants to help people, even before he knew he was quirkless. We wanted to make a difference for people who are forgotten. Even before he knew he was quirkless, he wanted to make a difference for people who are forgotten. Fat Gum reached out and picked up a bag. Inside was a few shards of glass and a white disc with a small, garishly wrapped gift glued to it. The tiny figure of Fat Gum in a Santa suit stood out. The crack of the plastic gave away the young hero's emotions as he gripped the bag tightly. The heroes all looked closer. Too many of the bags had blood smeared on the inside. Midnight fished out a figurine of herself, the arm holding her whip and one of her legs was snapped off. Shota was surprised to find a figurine of himself, too. It was hand-painted. His head and legs were broken off the torso. The minuscule sculpted strands of his capture weapon was shattered. A quick sniffled sob brought all eyes to present Mike. The bag he held was easily the most bloody. Inside was a broken frame and shattered glass. Hisashi had covered his mouth to keep his quirk in check. "I met him," Hisashi whispered. The tall tail crack of his quirk just below the surface. Shota reached out and pulled the evidence from his partner's shaking hands. His carefully crafted mask slipping slightly as a blood-smeared picture of two little boys smiling widely on each side of present Mike was burned into his mind's eye. "I remember this. I was at this opening," Shota said, turning the picture to the assembled heroes. Namasa took one more bag out from the box and placed it in front of Sir Night-Eye. Inside was the crushed box of an All Might action figure. "We are going to find this kid alive, because I promised a little boy that wants to grow up to be like All Might that I would bring his Night-Eye back to him." Night-Eye's fingers brushed over the bag. He nodded. That wasn't even the hardest part yet. This wasn't the closet. The smell of antiseptic in the floor was rough, like stone instead of wood grain. The light came from above. It was silver, not like the yellow lights from the hall. Izuku opened his eyes. Tall stone walls greeted him. The room was bigger than the closet, but just as empty. A metal door to his left and a window with bars was high up near the ceiling, much too high for even an adult to reach if they jumped. Izuku can see the roof of the building next door and a sliver of the night sky. Izuku curled up in the corner. How long has it been? Where was he? What was going to happen to him? Izuku could feel himself drifting, but he knew he had to stay alert. He had to be ready. The first rule during kidnapping was to stay calm. The second was to gain information. Izuku closed his eyes and carefully tapped his thumb to each finger in a steady rhythm. He matched his breathing to the taps. Soon he felt calmer. His heart wasn't racing as fast, and he didn't feel ready to jump out of his skin. With his mind sharper, Izuku realized his hands weren't bandaged. The scars on his fingers looked like paper mache. The fresh missing nail looked just as old as the other two. There was no way he had been here long enough that his wounds to heal naturally. It had to be a quirk. Gather information, Izuku told himself, standing from his crumpled position. The drug could have only lasted a couple of hours, but they used a healing quirk on me. If it's anything like most healing quirks, it sapped my energy. It's night again, so I would estimate it had been a full day. His muttering filled the room like a warmth, and Izuku fell into the comfortable mindscape of analyzes. Walking to the door, his footsteps effortlessly silent. Izuku pressed his ear to the metal. He could hear the rumble of voices in machinery. It's a large open space. The voices are echoing from somewhere deeper in the building. Most likely a warehouse, judging by what I can see of the building next door. Has to be abandoned or controlled area, or they would most likely worry about me calling for help. I shouldn't call out to anyone I see at the window. It's likely a guard. Izuku paced his cell, counting steps, noting every crack in the concrete, every noise that broke through his mutter storm. He had been right about the guards. As the night wore on, the same pattern of men had passed the window 4 times. The silver moonlight slowly turned to yellow as the sun rose. The next pair of guards were different. Morning shift, maybe? Izuku tried to make out enough details to figure out their quirks. A loud bang made Izuku jump. Someone was pounding on the door. He didn't hear them approach. Back away from the door. If you try anything, you won't like what happens to you. That was the Wolfman. That was the Wolfman from the handoff. Remembering how brutally strong the thug was, Izuku backed into the corner. The door opened, and in steps a lean-looking man with thinning brown hair and pale face lined with whiskers that put him solidly at middle age. The Wolfman followed him. "Hello, boy. My name is Dr. Nikia. How are you feeling?" His tone was critical. His words attempting a bedside manner, while his eyes roamed over Izuku greedily, making his skin crawl like nails on a chalkboard. "Come now, son. I just want to know if you feel any pain." Izuku tensed to dodge the man's body language. Izuku tensed to dodge. The man's body language made Izuku feel like prey. "No, sir. No pain," Izuku answered. Dr. Nikoya hummed and stepped forward. Izuku stood his ground. "Your mother promised us an obedient child, but Ware here tells me that you were naughty during pickup. He kept coming closer. Are you a good boy or a bad boy?" He was within arm's reach now. He smelt both musty and like chemical cleaner at the same time. Izuku ducked his head and raised his shoulders to his ears. "Show fear, no defiance." I was bad, but I can be good," Izuku stuttered. He moved so fast Izuku couldn't even squeak. His chin was gripped harshly with long, thin nails. His chin was gripped harshly with long, thin fingers. Izuku could feel the bruises blooming. The child was forced to look up at the doctor, feeling his hot breath on his face as the man licked his lips. The youngest null in Japan, he mused. You're a rarity, boy. So pure. No disgusting quirk staining your DNA. We have big plans for you. Izuku felt the doctor was digging through the pockets of his lab coat. But he couldn't see what he pulled out. But you need to be punished for trying to run. Izuku didn't feel the scalpel slice through his throat. He did feel when he breathed in his own blood. His lungs burned in protest as oxygen was replaced with warm liquid. Izuku heard his own gasps and the bubbly gurgle escaping his trachea. He saw the ruby spray paint the doctor's chest and face. He didn't let go of Izuku's chin. My quirk allows me to return things I break to their original form. Of course, it's a little more complicated with people. So the rebuilding isn't always seamless. Dr. Nikia's hand grew warm. A burning tingle spread across Izuku's skin, traveling down his throat and chest. There was a strange sensation of his skin zipping back up. The doctor finally released the child, who collapsed and began vomiting and coughing up blood. The tingle remained in his lungs a few extra moments until all the foreign liquid was expelled. He's much too malnourished to begin testing. The doctor's voice was heard over Izuku's pulse pounding in his ears. I order 3 meals a day until I'm satisfied he's healthy enough. I want a progress report every morning. Izuku forced himself to stay alert as Dr. Nikia bent over him. Take this time to replenish your energy, boy. You're going to need it. Izuku's life devolved into a predictable routine over the next 3 weeks. There was a brief attempt to delay the start of testing when Izuku refused to eat the entirety of his meals, forging a full stomach. It only lasted 3 days before he was force-fed by Ware and another thug Izuku named Puppeteer, due to his contact-based quirk allowing him to issue simple orders to whoever he was touching. Thankfully, the meal that day had been porridge, because he conveniently forgot to order Izuku to chew. After that, Izuku finished all his meals and submitted himself to physical exams every evening. Soon he realized he could game the system. After forcing himself to not sleep for a night, he claimed he wasn't comfortable on the floor, and the doctor ordered a thin mattress be placed in his cell. A couple of days later, Izuku bombarded 2 convenient assignments in a row and made an offhand comment about being bored. The next day, crayons were delivered with breakfast. The flat stone walls were perfect to draw as Izuku began to doodle. The drawings of heroes and random outdoor scenes were just camouflaged for his true purpose. Using a simple code, he began developing for his analyzations notebooks. He'd been keeping track of everything he observed. 2 nurses in the clinic, healing and diagnosis quirks. 2 roaming guards, building parameter 6-hour rotations where wolf mutation, stretchy limbs, puppeteer, pink hair, contact-based control, blowtorch, black fingers, fire quirk, strength quirk, drug operation trigger. Because no one was allowed to talk to Izuku outside the medical staff, the thugs that often cross their path going between the basement cell and the clinic were loose-lipped. It only took a week and a half for Izuku to pick up that quirk experimentation was only a part of their operation. They were also trafficking drugs, specifically Trigger. Izuku knew little about Trigger from trolling message boards on local crime. It was relatively new, and not only gave users a boost in energy, it also boosted their quirk. It was easy to overdose on. Addicts were known to overheat until brain death, or were killed by their own quirk drawbacks. It confused Izuku. Wasn't Dr. Nakia trying to find a way to erase quirks? Trigger was counterproductive. Soon the day came where the doctor was satisfied with Izuku's health. Time to move to the next phase. Before Izuku knew it, he was being thrown down on an examination table. He flailed desperately as the nurse tried to strap him down. He pushed at the man trying to buckle the leather band across his chest, while kicking at the woman trying to pin his legs. There was a satisfying crack as his knee contacted the side of her head. "Really, boy? Must you fight us?" A stabbing pain ripped through Izuku's thigh, causing him to scream and his whole body to stiffen. The nurses took their chance to secure the straps. Izuku grinded his teeth and glanced down to where the scalpel was protruding from his leg. "This will be much less painful if you just cooperate. You said you would be a good boy." The doctor stood over him, casually playing with another scalpel. Breathing deeply through the pain, Izuku allowed his arms to be restrained. Was that so hard? Izuku bit back another cry as the scalpel was removed and the tingle of the doctor's quirk surrounded the wound. Izuku began to sob. He could feel the phantom pains from all his injuries. He cursed himself for letting his guard down and allowing them to get the jump on him. He wanted to curl up into a ball, but the heavy bands bit into his wrists and ankles. He prayed for the numbness he used to feel when his mother beat him. Now he was exposed nerve. Now he was an exposed nerve. Every touch ached as they added more straps across his thighs and his forehead and cut away his shirt. The rattle of a medical tray being shifted to the bedside made Izuku squeeze his eyes shut. His body was racking with sobs. He didn't want to see what was coming next. "Don't cry, boy. This is a happy day. We're taking a big step towards our goal." A loud buzzing noise started near Izuku's ear. The sudden sensation of a tattoo gun made Izuku's sobs hitch. It wasn't nearly painful enough to really bother him, but the idea of being branded made his stomach roll. The doctor wasn't gentle as he wiped away excess ink. The stinging of the vibrating needles set Izuku's teeth on edge. When the tattoo gun was turned off, Izuku felt himself slipping away. The straps were removed, and one of the guards came to escort Izuku back to the basement. "Make sure he gets a nutritious dinner tonight. We have so much to do tomorrow." Subject 11. It was hours later when Izuku drifted back to himself. He was laying limp on his mattress. His cut shirt did nothing against the cold air. Looking down, it took a moment for Izuku's tired eyes to focus on the black letters and numbers tattooed on his chest. QRKLS-0715XX-MI-11 quirkless. July 15th, XXXX. Midoriya Izuku. Subject 11. That was so hard to get through. Chapter 4 will be up next. Chapter 4 is called Waiting to be Buried. Summary. Subject 11's terrible, awful, no good, very bad life. There is also going to be more trigger warnings in that one as well. Isn't that just grand? The next chapter is also going to be, again, very hard for me to read. I love this fan fiction. I just don't like. Here's a little thing about me. I don't like sexual suggestive phrasing. Like, I'll read stuff that is sexual. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like it when it's, 1, to a minor, and 2, when it's suggestive to a minor. I like reading sexual things. I like, just reading sexual things. I do find people sexually attractive. Doesn't mean I'll do anything with them. That's just who I am. Anywho, again, chapter 4 will be up next. But until next time, my beautiful mythical creatures, peace out. Remember to stay hydrated and eat donuts.